Hello, Adam from godisgeek.com here, and I am here with the lovely Mick Fraser, also of godisgeek.com, coincidentally. How are you, mate?
I'm all right, mate.
We're here to talk about Murdered colon Soul Suspect, right?
Yes, we are. Yep.
Which you've been playing and are in the middle of reviewing at this point. We won't have a review up in time for the USA release, but we should have one up in time for the UK release this Friday, correct?
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
And that's simply because we want to finish the game. Really, that's about it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's important to. It's a mystery. You don't know. It's only as good as the reveal, really. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, the story's going to be really important because, as you say, it's a sort of murder mystery type thing, and for all you know, it could fall apart in the last 2 hours. We don't know at this point, do we really?
no.
But let's rather than talk about what we can't do, rather, let's talk about what we can talk about, so to speak. So it's a third-person game. That's where we start because I'll be honest with you, I don't know very much about this game other than the footage I've seen of it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What? I mean, what is it? What does it control like for a start? What kind? Compare it to another game in terms of how it feels to control, I suppose.
It feels quite similar to LA Noire. It's that kind of slow sort of third person.
Right.
It's not a fast paced game at all. It's very much you sort of stroll or you jog. Yes, it feels a lot like LA Noire to control.
Is there combat?
Not exactly. I mean, there's danger and peril, which we can
Because
get
you're a
to. But
ghost, aren't you? Yeah, is that correct?
yeah, yeah,
You're a
you're a
ghost.
ghost. Yeah,
Okay,
well,
so
backstory,
yeah,
just
yeah.
briefly. So yeah, you're Ronan O'Connor, which is about as Irish a name as you can get. Yeah, and you're a police officer in Salem, Massachusetts. So the game starts with you chasing down a serial killer who has a nasty habit of murdering people with no MO. He just kills people different ways every time.
Right.
No connection to the victims really, and he leaves a little picture of a bell on them. So they just call him the Bell Killer. So at the beginning of the game, you charge into a building. You don't know why you're there yet. You try to arrest him. He throws you out the window, and then he shoots you 7 times in the chest.
Okay, so the game starts with you dying then.
Yeah, the game starts with you dying. In the first minute, you're dead. It begins with you falling out the window in slow motion, hitting the deck. And then you get a little brief sort of tutorial moment before you try and successfully to get back in your body. And then from then on, yeah, you're a ghost.
So does that mean you have to make use of other people to like let you in places and certain things? Because presumably you can't touch things, or can you touch things?
No, you can't touch anything. You have to. The way the game sets up, obviously it's Salem, it's set, which is quite convenient in a way because a hell of a lot of Salem during the witch trials is obviously a very religious history to the town.
Yeah.
So the way the developers get around not letting you just wander wherever you want is that you can't go anywhere that is consecrated. So if you want to get into a consecrated building, which is almost everywhere in Salem,
yeah,
you have to have an open window or an open door first in order to get in. So yeah, you can't touch doors, you can't move anything.
it sounds like you're a vampire. Like you have to be invited in almost.
Yeah, it's almost like that. Yeah, you just have to wait for your opportunity, really. But it's kind of most of those opportunities are kind of scripted. A lot of the game is open because a lot of it is wandering around trying to solve crimes, and you find other dead people that you
See,
sort of help to move on.
but you say as soon as you say open, I think to myself, so is this an open world game then?
No, not. It's kind of semi-open world, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it's structured, and it's quite a small enclosed game area. From what I've seen, I've not finished it obviously so far.
No.
But there's kind of like the town itself is is like a bit of a hub, and you're led to various areas that you have to investigate from that hub. So you begin in the apartment building you were thrown out of, then you move on to the church, and then like various other areas in the town while you chase down this killer and try and work out why he kills people, who he is, why he killed you.
Yeah, but I noticed in some of the videos that we've grabbed, like dialogue options, like where you can choose, kind of like Mass Effect conversation stuff.
It's a little bit less in depth than that.
Right.
The majority of conversations are pretty black and white. Like you'll normally, because you can only talk to ghosts, obviously. So you find other dead people. Salem's a very haunted place, so there's dead people all over the place. You can talk to them. It's called interrogation, but it's not an interrogation. You normally get two choices: you press square or you press circle, and then you ask them that question.
Right.
Usually, you can't ask them both, so you've got to pick which one you choose quite carefully if you want to get the right information out of them. And so far, it doesn't look like there's any way to go back and redo any of those conversations.
So what are you doing? You are doing like LA Noire style investigations, like going around rooms and checking stuff out.
Yeah, it's not quite as graphic as LA Noire, but yeah, that's basically it. You begin with investigating your own murder, so you start picking apart things like the murder weapon, the crime scene. You can jump into the bodies of people and read their mind. It sounds cool, but it's a bit limited because you sort of get one sentence per mind read, and then it starts looping.
Uh,
And then various characters or various NPCs will all have the same thoughts, which is a little bit off-putting because it's really quite unrealistic. But there's other things you can do, like you can jump into somebody so you can read their mind, so you get a little bit of information, or you can there's a button that says peek where you can look at what they've got in their hand. If they've got anything, use like a notepad or something that you need to read.
right.
And then there's another button which is influence. So if you have enough evidence, if Ronan has enough of a reason to influence a person, you can jog their memory or make them move something so you can see it clearer. But it's very limited, so you can't do a lot. You can't just jump into a person and go joyriding. You have to work with the tools you've got, basically.
Did you ever play the game, Capcom's game on 3DS called Ghost Trick?
No, I don't remember that. No.
Okay, because some of this stuff sounds very similar. In fact, that game, for example, again, you're dead, you don't know why, so that's different. But you basically go around environments, can interact with certain objects to change things in the real world, so to speak. And what you're saying kind of sounds a bit like that. I mean, but one thing we should say is like you're reviewing this on PS4, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of these games I find at the moment that are sort of old gen and new gen, some of them look great. I wasn't blown away by what I saw of this graphically.
It looks pretty good. I
Okay.
mean, it looks quite good. I mean, the cutscenes are good. The voice work, the lip syncing is really cock on.
Excellent.
But yeah, the environment, I mean, it's just sort of a bit silent, hilly. Everything's kind of grey. I mean, when you first become a ghost, everything becomes grey around you, like a lot of the colour sucks out of the world. And
That spectral sort of greeny grey
yeah,
kind of.
yeah, that's right. It's kind of saturated. I mean, the ghostly effects are quite good because there's lots of places that you can see that aren't there anymore. So you'll come across buildings that don't exist and people will be walking through them, but you can't because in this ghostly world, the remnants, the residue of these buildings still remains, and they're usually burning, obviously.
Right.
Because, I mean, Salem's history is quite a lot to do with fire and the witch trials and things. So
The setting sounds pretty cool in that respect.
it is pretty cool actually.
But I don't know. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of influences going on here.
It doesn't feel too much like that. I mean, it doesn't feel as unique as I think Square Enix wanted us to believe it was going to be. It's nothing groundbreaking. But it does feel kind of new for a lot of the time. It does.
Right.
There are a lot of things I'm doing that I'm thinking, oh, that's quite cool. I mean, it's not, it's nothing major.
Is that similar to sort of LA Noire gave me that in like it wasn't like a new genre, but it did things. I mean, some of it was quite old, but brought into the new, and it felt unique because of that.
Yeah, it's very much like that. I mean, that's the game that I think influences it the most is LA Noire, obviously because it is a noir. It is it is a crime. A mystery thriller. It's just the difference is, you're not shooting people, you're already dead, and that's the sort of thing. It's not exactly new ground it's covering, but it covers old ground in interesting ways. If that makes sense.
Well, before we let you get back to the reviewing process, you mentioned earlier on when I asked if there was no combat, if there's combat, you mentioned there's danger. Now, is that something you can talk about, or is that spoilery?
No, not really, because you find it out sort of within the first few minutes. Basically, there are ghosts that linger. It's the old cliche of if you die and you've got unfinished business, you don't move on.
Right.
You've got to accomplish whatever you've got left hanging. So there's dead people everywhere that are suffering the same thing you are. Like at the beginning, you meet a little girl who seems to be quite happy to just be a dead, dispossessed body, dispossessed spirit. Sorry. But there are those who go mad. There are those who can't cope with being stuck in limbo, and they slowly, over time, become these demons. And they're nasty-looking things, all big teeth, and they'll appear at not random moments. I think so far it's always scripted. But they'll sort of appear from the ground, and then you have to hide. You've got shades of other people that are left around there. You see like these ghostly silhouettes that float in the air,
Right.
and you can dive into them and hide from the demons. And the demons will sniff around them like attack dogs. And you've basically, it's kind of reminds me of Arkham Asylum, where you swing from gargoyle to gargoyle and lose the guard's attention.
Right.
It's kind of like that. You jump in between these silhouettes until the demon loses interest and buggers off, and then when it does, you've got to creep up behind it, and then you can exercise it. You can execute the demon and get rid of it. So it's not punchy minute to minute combat, but it's quite tense when it happens. And it's quite interesting. It's not new ground, but it's quite interesting way to cover old ground.
Cool. Well, yeah, as we said at the beginning of this video, we can't bring you a review at this moment that we're recording, and we'll bring it to you as soon as basically Mick's finished it, really. I mean, we got the code a bit later than we would have hoped, so that's the way the cookie crumbles. But just, if people want to tweet you, Mick, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Jedi Beats Tank, Jedi_Beats_Tank. You can give me a bell on there anytime you want, and I'll give you some info. I don't want to spoil it for anybody who doesn't want to know.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the kind of game we're not going to really spoil in the review, which is something we wouldn't do anyway. Other than that, if you like this kind of thing, do hit that like. Do subscribe to us. Thank you very much to Mick for his time, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.